didn't know at that point was that he was actually living with his baby mama, like the mother of his child, and she was pregnant with the second child. By the time I went back on my second trip
In December.
in December, she was pregnant because she had been pregnant. She was pregnant on my first trip.
And I'm catching feelings, baby.
What's up, beautiful people? It's Hershe Sundae, and I'm back with the scoop after dark. Tonight's episode, we're doing things a little different, okay? We have a special guest that I'm really excited to be speaking with. And because this is March, Women's History Month, I wanted to be intentional about amplifying the voices of women, listening to their stories, their life experiences, their wisdom, the lessons, the growth, all of it. So we're switching it up a little bit for the month of March. But before we get into that, how are you? No, I mean, really, how are you? We are in the first few days of March. Spring is literally just around the river bend, okay, a la Pocahontas, and a new season is coming. How has this month been treating you so far? I hope it's been good to you. And whether you're on your way to work, whether you're at home rearranging your living room, whether you're doing laundry, taking care of those babies, on a road trip, or maybe in bed, lying with your thoughts, just know you are in a safe space here. Here you are welcome, and I'm really happy to have you. And if you haven't already, please go ahead, like, follow, and share the page. Subscribe if you're on YouTube. It truly does help with the growth, and I appreciate the engagement. It matters, and I appreciate the support. All right, Scoops, we have tonight's conversation. Let's get into it. Tonight we have Miss Renee. Some of you may already know her from TikTok. She's known on her platform as My Nigerian Husband from Italy. I first came across Renee's story on TikTok where she shared very openly, very eloquently, the story of her whirlwind romance with her husband and everything that unfolded afterward. And as I listened to her tell her story, I knew I had to invite her over onto the show so we can go a little bit deeper and really talk about what happened. Because stories like hers, stories like Renee's, it deserves to be amplified, not just for awareness, but also for healing. And as always, here on The Scoop After Dark, this is a no judgment zone. We're here to have an honest conversation, to listen, to learn, and to hold space for people's experiences. So I'm grateful to have Renee, and I'm grateful that you were willing to share your story here. So, Scoops, let's give it up for Miss Renee. Ew. How are you, beautiful? How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Thank you so much for inviting me here tonight.
No problem at all. Thank you for coming. I'm so excited to have you here. And I want you to feel comfortable and welcomed, all of that jazz, okay? We're going to have a lot of candid talk. But before we get into that, let's learn a little bit more about you. So tell us about yourself. Where are you from? What do you like to do? Let's hear about what Renee has going on.
Okay, so I'll start with where I was born because I know that that's often a little complicated. So I was born in the U.S. and I was adopted as an infant. Like I was less than one. I was a few months old when I was adopted. And I was adopted by Trinidadian parents who were living in the US at the time, but then moved to Canada by the time I was one. So I was raised in Canada by Trinidadian parents. And I've lived in Canada most of my life. And then I in about 20, well, I actually went to school. I went to university in the US. And then after university, I came back to Canada, worked, and then went back in 2017, which is why I've kind of been there since then, and kind of going back and forth. I was married I had a first marriage. I had 2 children that resulted from that marriage, and married to a Canadian-born man, a lawyer, divorced, and co-parenting with my 2 kids. So that was my life prior to this marriage that I
Okay,
am in now.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff. Good stuff. Now, if I'm Trinidadian, is that roti? Is that okay,
Roti, doubles,
doubles. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
you know.
Cause see, I'm a
Yeah.
foodie. I'm like, there's some spices in there that I need to ask her about after this show. That I need
Oh, yeah.
to. Okay,
Yeah,
love
for
it,
sure.
love it. Now, and before we get into the questions, what do you want people to know about you as a person overall?
Um, I think overall, I just want people to know that I'm an honest person and I stand for the truth. In everything I've done in my life, I think I've brought forth truth. Even when it comes to like my adoption, like that whole experience itself brought truth and brought a lot of things to light. And I feel like I'm doing the same thing now with telling my story. So, yeah, I think that at the end of the day, I try to be as authentic and as genuine as possible in telling the truth.
I love that, and it will set you free. Love that. All right, well, let's dive into it. Let's go and rewind just a bit before the marriage. And you did touch on a few points. You were previously married, resulting in 2 children. After the divorce, what was your dating experiences like prior to meeting your ex-husband? Did you date often? And were you looking for marriage at the time?
So no, I was not looking for marriage when I met my husband. I dated, like I was kind of casual in my dating. Um I there right prior to my meeting my husband, I was in a relationship for probably about 2 years. Um and it was like I said, he was a good guy. Like I still talk to him to this day. Like we're friendly. Like I've never had really a bad experience. Like none of my exes, I don't have hateful relationships with them. Like it started and then it stopped and we were fine. So I've had I would say a healthy dating experience. Um I wasn't looking for anything. I remember being on my cousin's couch watching 90 Day Fiance when when I said to her, it would be kind of cool to meet someone from a different country. And that's how I went on a dating app. That's how I met my husband. I was on it was an international, it was like an international dating app or something like that. And I was like, let's see who's out there. And I actually, interestingly, excluded Africa. The entire
Oh, really?
continent of Africa, I excluded in the app
Why was that? Was it just
because
too far, or what did you hear? Actually, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that. But because that literally was my next question. How
yeah,
did you and your husband initially meet? And what led to you two starting a relationship? So you kind of touched on you were on an international dating app. You excluded Africa, but what made you say, let me go ahead and just click the bit?
because at the time, like this was 2018, and this was around the time when you would get those weird emails from people
Mm-hmm,
saying that they were Nigerian princes. Like it was, I knew that I did not want to. I had never dated anyone from Africa.
mm-hmm,
I wasn't interested in dating. I wasn't aware of this scene that I'm now a part of.
mm-hmm.
I It was just not an interest for me. So Africa, I excluded the entire continent of Africa when I went on this app. I included Europe. Um, at the time, the UK was still a part of Europe, um, and I excluded Canada and the US. because I wanted someone foreign. I wanted to date, like, I was interested in talking to someone from a different part of the world, but not Canada, not the US, and not Africa.
Okay. Got it. So when you two initially met, which I'm assuming was on the app,
Mm-hmm.
what led to you to starting a relationship? Like, was it his banter? What led to you two kind of saying, okay, let's give this a little shot? And had you ever, when you found out he was originally from Nigeria, have you ever dated a Nigerian man prior? I'm feeling like no. Okay.
Yeah, I'll
And
tell you about that.
yeah. Let's talk, because I have a bunch of questions. So let one thing at a time. What led to you two starting a relationship?
So at the time that I met him, again, in the beginning, we were chatting through the app. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember it was about April, because I know that the app had like a 3 months free, and then you had
Mm-hmm.
to move to paying. And so at the time, I think I was talking to, there were about 3 men that I had been speaking to consistently. One was like an Italian white, like a white Italian named just, well, I won't say his name, but it was like a real Italian name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mulatto or
Another
something
one,
sexy like that.
like Giuseppe. I could say,
Yeah.
I'll say it, Giuseppe. His name was Giuseppe.
Giuseppe. That sounds good to me.
And there was another, actually, I guess it was 4. So there was another um man who was in Malaysia. He was Nigerian, but he was in
Mm-hmm.
Malaysia.
Mm-hmm.
And there was another Nigerian who was in Italy, and he was like a lab technician. Like, he had a good job. I remember he would wear scrubs, like I would see him. And then there was my husband,
Mm-hmm.
who I remember his age showing up, because at the time I met him, he was 30. On his
Okay.
thing it said 30, and it said um love is the greatest, was one of the phrases on his app. And I still have screenshots. I keep receipts of everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it said something like love is the greatest. And I remember thinking, oh, he's kind of young, because me at the time I was 43,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have a 13-year age gap between us. And I remember thinking, oh, he's cute, but he's young. So I had these 4 men that I was conversating with. And we were winding down to the point where I'd have to start paying for the app.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, I don't want, like, I don't want to, like, this is fun, but I'm not going to pay $39.99 a month to
Right.
be
To
on this
talk to
app.
y'all.
And so when my now husband said, like, can we go on WhatsApp? I said, sure. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that conversation specifically. Like, I hadn't spoken to him. We were just chatting. Um, and so that's kind of how it started. Like, we started chatting from the app, and then we moved on to WhatsApp. It was really, I was just kind of like, because having to like juggle even conversations for me, like, I call myself a serial monogamist. Um, I couldn't move into something serious with multiple people at the time. I just remember thinking, okay, like, this is fun, but it's getting complicated. So
It
let's
does.
narrow it down.
It does. And I'm glad that you said that, because some people, oh, have a roster. And while it is a good time, it's a funky good time. Even um at the end of the day, if that's not, I'm not naturally a let's have a roster type of woman either. I'm like, I need to focus. There are too many things going on. So, I don't want to confuse names. People will get offended. Things happen. Now let's talk about the courtship part. How long did you two date? And how much of that was long distance before y'all decided to get married?
So we started by July. I remember moving off of the app onto WhatsApp and kind of narrowing it down to him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even really know how I narrowed it down to him, but it was just kind of like he was very he had a sweet mouth. Like as you probably have seen. Like he had a sweet mouth. He was always available, I guess, at that time. And I was traveling a lot for work, and he would always be around. He would always check on me. How are you doing? You know, just very sweet, just very present. Um and 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 he was in Italy. So I think a huge part of what allowed me to build upon our relationship was the fact that he was in Italy, because I loved Italy. Like
Was that
before,
that
even
was
be
like a romantic type
yes,
of addition to meeting him?
girl.
I
Like
get it.
this was around the time of there was a movie called oh
Zoe
it was
Saldana.
no no it was way before that. It was a Tuscany, something about Tuscany, and this woman that like fell in love. I should Google it. Um and she was building this place in Tuscany. I think
Mm-hmm.
it might have been, you know, Elizabeth Gilbert.
Let me see what this is.
But there was just all this, there was just this, Italy was just this romantic place. And
Mm.
so the fact that he was in Italy was one of the things that really drew me to him. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember asking him, like, he didn't quite in the beginning tell me the truth about why he was in Italy.
Mm.
Um, he actually, I should have probably like noticed this, but he did lie to me, because I remember in the beginning he told me, "Oh, I've been to Austria and I've been to Denmark and I've been," like he was telling me all this, and then he caught himself and he said, "No, no, I'm just kidding. Like, no, I haven't." Um, and
So he was denying that he were at those different countries.
yeah, so he
Okay.
started by telling me, because I was like, "Oh my God, you're in Italy." Because when I first saw him in the pictures that he had shared, or that he had on his profile, he
Mm-hmm.
kind of looked to me like he might have been mixed with Asian.
Mm-hmm.
So I just assumed that he was Italian born, living in Italy. I didn't realize he was Nigerian until we spoke for the
Mm-hmm.
first time, because before we were just chatting. So I thought he was like a model or something. Like he looked nice in his pictures. He just
Mm-hmm.
looked attractive. He was an attractive man. Um, and so at first, when we started talking, he started off by lying to me and telling me, "Oh, I've been to Austria, I've been to Denmark, I've been to all these places." And then he retracted that and said, "No, I'm just kidding. I really haven't been to those places." And then he started to tell me his actual story, that he was Nigerian. I literally, when he told me he was Nigerian, I literally did not talk to him for 2 days. Like if I could,
Did it turn you off that he was
it
originally okay?
100%. And I remember if I could go back to my chat and find those like find those, I remember him messaging me and saying, like, why are you not talking to me? What, like, where did you go? Like he was coming at me saying, is it because I told you I'm Nigerian that you're not talking to me?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where did you disappear to? Why are you not messaging me? Like, and then I told him, I said, well, I said, you're Nigerian. And at
Mm-hmm.
that point, I said, call me on video right now.
Mm-hmm.
The first time we spoke on video, I said, call me on video right now. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
need to see you. And he called me on video, and he was in the stairwell.
I was just about to ask you because you mentioned the part that he lied and you caught him. Were there any other like inklings of this ain't sounding right? And to me, it sounded like the stairwell was like the other little red flag. Okay.
Well,
Okay, I thought
well,
so.
he explained the stairwell away, but I just remember when he called me, because I was like, it was like we were in the phone looking at each other like this,
Mm-hmm.
and he called me, and we were on video, and I remember he had like, at that time he had these little dreads that used to stick up, and we were like this. Like we were looking at each other like this, and then we burst out laughing, right? We both burst out laughing. I was like, okay, I've seen you. You are who you said you were in the picture. Okay, now I hear your voice. I see you. You're Nigerian. Okay, so it was out on the table. Now I knew he was a Nigerian living in Italy, and that's all I knew at that point.
What did he tell you? What was the story of why he was in Italy?
So we got to that after.
Okay.
That was when he said, I'm going to tell you everything. I'm going to tell you the truth. This is what he said to me, that he was going to tell me the truth. And he began to tell me the story of him traveling through the desert. And now keep in mind, this is the first time in my life that I'm hearing such a story, right? I had never dated an African ever. I mean, my boyfriend, like all my boyfriends have been like Black, but not African, right? My ex-husband was Canadian born, but he was Caribbean parentage. My other boyfriends have been Black, but Caribbean, or Canadian born, but like whatever. Hearing this story was new to me. So he explained that he left Nigeria, went through the Sahara, got to Libya, paid a smuggler, like just the whole, it took 4 times before he crossed over to the it was just like, it was, to me at the time, it was a story of courage and determination, right?
He left Nigeria. The reasoning was for what? Did he say like a better education, a better job opportunity, or
Just a better life.
A better life?
Yeah, he was tired of, he told me that he was making like the equivalent of $50 a month. I don't know. And he was working in like a factory, bottling something. No, he had 2 jobs. He worked in a factory, like bottling, like Guinness, bottling stuff, and then he worked for a pharmaceutical company, something like that. So he had these 2, and he was making the equivalent of $50 a month, is what he told me. So he was just tired of life in Nigeria. He left, and he paid a smuggler to smuggle him and others, that this is what they did. They get them to Libya, and then they cross over. So that was the initial story he told me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So during this time, while you were talking to him, getting to know him, did you talk to any of your friends or family about the situation?
Initially, no.
Okay. What was the reason? And you can be honest. What was the reason?
Because, one of the funniest things, my cousin, like, she's one of my ride or die chicks. She has this thing about Nigerians, and she would always get these emails about the Nigerian prince and send your money. So this was her concept, and at the time, like, we were into 90 Day Fiance, so there was the Angela Michael story. I don't know if you're a 90 Day Fiance fan, right?
I know that story.
It was like the only thing we do, other than the Nigerian prince email, send me your money story, the only other thing we knew about Nigerians was Michael on 90 Day Fiance. So I wasn't about to tell anybody, No, I didn't tell anybody. Even when I went to Italy the first time, I never told any. Actually, I did tell my cousin. I did tell her that I was going to Italy and that I had met. I don't know how much detail I gave her, but I remember her saying to me, somebody has to know where you're going. And so I did tell her, maybe her and maybe my sister, because those are the only 2 people. If I told anything, it would have been them. But my cousin for sure knew where I was going and who was going to um take, like, kind of, I don't want to say take care of me, because
Who was kind of watching over you while you were over there?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So did she have a reaction to that? Was she hesitant? Did she give any type of feedback that you could remember?
I mean, she gave me the side eye, but we were very close. So
Mm-hmm.
she's been through her stuff. I had been, it was kind of like, okay, girl, like, this is another girls just want to have fun adventure. Okay. But if anything happens to you, I just need to know.
Where you at?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So
Okay.
at that point, that was basically it. Yeah.
Okay. So now you get to Italy. You meet him for the first time. What was it like? What was the experience like when you were able to lay eyes on him? Did you feel like, oh, my person? Was it like okay, this is let's navigate this a little bit more? Like what were the feelings?
So, I mean, quite honestly, at that point, I was more excited about Italy than I was about him. It was just, I mean, it was, I had never been to Europe, anywhere in Europe. And I was just excited to be going to Italy. At that point, my first trip, I mean, we were friends, right? Like, I
Mhm.
wasn't in love with him. He was tall, he was handsome, he was still at that point skinny. It was fine. Like, I was just excited to be going to Italy, and I had everything planned out that I wanted to do. So he was kind of along for the ride. I would say my first 3 trips there, he was kind of just along for the ride. He did propose to me on my first trip, which I thought was cute and
Proposed to
funny.
you with a ring?
Yeah, like, with a real tattered, like it was a ring that it was so big I had to put it on my thumb. And I remember laughing, and I did include it in my story,
I
because I was
believe
like,
I did see it in one of your stories.
yeah, I was like, marriage, like, what
So
are
what
you like?
when he proposed, what were his if I know that it's been, a few years. Had you two been romantically speaking prior to the trip?
Yes, like, we talked all the time. Like, because, like
Mhm.
I said, I traveled a lot for work, and he was just always present, right?
Mhm.
So, and by now I knew his story. I knew that his situation wasn't that great.
Mhm.
Um, but I didn't know much, right? He was like, I remember when I said I'm coming to Italy, and I remember he was like, I'm gonna take care of you. I just remember thinking, like, I don't need you to take care of me. Like, I'll be fine. Like,
Mhm.
it's great. I would love to see you. I'd love to meet you. And, but it wasn't like I wasn't invested. Like, I
Mhm.
was going to Italy, and I wanted to go. I, he told me he had a friend in Napoli. So I knew that I flew into Torino, and we stayed in Torino, wait, did we rent a car? No, I didn't rent a car that time. We stayed in Torino, and and then we took the train to Napoli. So it was like we did stuff in the area. But anyway, so it was just like, it was light. And so when he proposed, like, I remember chuckling, and I was like, okay, like, it's not that serious. Like, let's
We're, you know,
give it a year. Like, let's give it some time. Like, let's see what happens.
okay. So were you two officially dating during that time? To where
Well,
okay.
yeah, but
Okay.
by that point, I would say we were dating, but I wasn't invested
It was
necessarily.
more casual on your side.
For me, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, during this, did he seem more into you than did you feel that he was way more into you, way more invested?
Yes, definitely.
Were there ever any points of that? Did you feel like, he seems like he's pouring it on a little thick?
Well, yes, but it wasn't a turn off at that point because I remember in those early days, like, and he would, I mean, if he's honest with himself, um, he'll say, because I remember saying to him, you should never love, what did I would say something like, because he would say to me, you're my everything, like you're my happiness or you're my joy. He would say something like that to me. And I remember saying to him, you should never make another person your joy or your reason for being. Like it's like he literally worshiped the ground I walked on. And I wasn't even, there was nothing financial at that point with him. I wasn't supporting him. I didn't, I didn't know how he got through his days. I knew he was struggling, but he wasn't my responsibility at that point in time. Um, it was kind of after my first trip, like after I went there and we hung out and I came back, he told me that he wanted to move from where he was in Torino to Napoli with the friend. Because when I went there on my first trip, I met one of his friends when we went to Napoli. That was the friend that um was like his best friend. And so after I came back home, I went there in like October and I went back again in December. So by the time I went in December, he had moved from where he was in in Torino to Napoli, right?
Did you see the new home that he moved into with his friend?
When I went there in December, I did.
Okay.
Between like November, December, before my trip, like he kept me in touch about him moving, and he was explaining that it was cheaper for him to move in with his friend in Napoli than it was where he was staying with his roommate in Torino. I didn't know at that point was that he was actually living with his baby mama, like the mother of his child, and she was pregnant with the second child. By the time I went back on my second trip
in December,
she was pregnant because she had been pregnant. She was pregnant on my first trip, but I guess we didn't know that because I've done the math, and I guess she got pregnant in September before my first trip in October.
The first trip, you didn't get a chance to see where he was living?
No.
Okay.
No.
So he was in the house with her. He ends up moving in December by the time you come back. When did you, first, before I get to that question, how was the dating experience from the time you first got there until, I know he proposed the first trip. How was the dating experience with him? Was it a good experience? Did he seem forthcoming? Was he paying for dates?
So no, like for me, he wasn't paying for dates. Like I knew his situation was kind of dire. Like he told me that he used to beg. Like he explained his situation to me, that he was basically an undocumented migrant living in Italy. How he got there. Like I knew it wasn't a situation where I was looking at him like he was someone that could give me anything. It was more about what I felt compassion for him. And I liked him. Like I found his situation kind of fascinating, really, to tell you the truth. I felt like he had his character, such a determined individual. I mean, for someone to have gone through what he went through, I mean, that story captivated me. It was unlike anyone I'd ever met in my life. So I was more in a person that was in a position of, I was the one that was in a position of giving, right? Like,
and
I was there
because
for
of
my
his
experience.
situation, you felt comfortable.
Yeah,
Giving.
like I was just like, okay, I knew he had nothing to give me. I was more the person that had something to give him, and show him. So I felt like when I would go there, I was giving him an experience, right? I won't generalize, but like I felt the experience of him walking beside me made him like hold his shoulders up higher and hold his head up higher, right? Like because it was like he'd never been with somebody that made him get respect. Like when we would go to the hotel, like for example, I remember going to the hotel, checking in, and I put my passport down because they would ask for ID. And it's like the minute they saw me with my blue passport, he got respect, right? And he had never had that experience before. So I remember specifically it was the AC Marriott in Torino. And I remember going in there, he was with me, and they would look at him like, and then the minute I put down my passport, checked in, then they were like, oh, Miss so and so, and they would call him Mr. And then he would just like, he'd stand up. It made me feel good for him
You wanted
that
that
he was
for
having
him.
that experience, because it was like, to me, it was no big deal. But to him, to watch this man be able to like feel good about himself made me feel good. And so it became this thing for me, I guess. Not that I was trying to be a savior to him, but I liked watching him feel good about himself, right? Because it was never something I had to do for anybody in my life before. I've never had to do that for my kids. I've never had to do that for myself, because I've just always had a basic level of respect in life. Like I've never had the experience of what he was experiencing as a undocumented migrant in Italy. So to watch him gain respect just from, I don't know, it felt good.
Do you think that watching him gain that respect, did it bring you two closer? Were you more emotionally invested because of it? You saw him kind of, flowering, sprouting, blooming, kind of coming alive. I think as women, we're nurturers anyway. A lot of us, we get we are happy to see what our love and our affect can do to a man in a positive way. Do you think that was the case?
Yeah, no, definitely. In retrospect and upon reflection, I would say yes. Like I definitely felt that for him. Like, the way he started reorganizing his life. He used to complain about his roommate, and when he moved and he was out on his own, I watched how he was blossoming, because when he moved, and now I didn't know it at the time, but when they moved into the place that they were living in, he got the biggest room, right? His roommate had a small room. It was his roommate and his roommate's brother, and they had this big house, like this big house. It was in a bad part of town. It was called Castelvolturno was where they lived. And it was like a big house. And his roommate had a smaller room. His brother had the room downstairs. And at the time, his brother had a wife. I guess it was his wife. And she was pregnant, and they had a little boy. Um, and so they had the room downstairs, and so my husband had the biggest room. And I realized that now, you know, they probably saw me because they knew that I was part of the scene. Like it wasn't an expensive, like I think he paid, it was under $200 a month. Like because I remember I started helping him with that rent, or paying the rent, because it was
When
like $200 a month.
when did you start helping him? Was that during the dating process or after an engagement? Because you mentioned that he proposed the first time you first met. When did he propose? How many times did he propose? And when
So he
did you accept it?
so he proposed in like I said, that first trip, and I was like, no. Let's see what happens. But at that point, I saw where his mind was going, and I knew that he wanted something better for himself. Like, he moved out, he was living in this place. He told me at this point, he told me he was moving out, and what it was cost. I had met his friend, so I knew, and I was like, okay, well, I was helping him. So he was working, he was able to work for 6 months. I was helping him with his rent at that point. When he moved, it was cheaper than living in Torino, he told me. And I remember like helping him. Like, I think I gave him like $40. Like, it was not a lot of money. Like, it wasn't anything significant. And then that started increasing, because at that point I was now invested, right? Like, I was planning my next trip. I had gone back in December. My kids were in Costa Rica with my parents over the holidays, so I had the opportunity to go back, right? Because I was going to be doing nothing. The kids were away, you know. So I'd gone back, and then I was planning for my next trip, which would have been in May of 2019. So by that point, we were like, I knew he was serious about me, and I was kind of seeing where it was going, because I had told him, give us a year. Like, let's see what happens in a year, right? So
when that year came to pass, is that when he proposed again?
So no, when that year came, that was my third trip. I went there in May of 2019, and I went back in December of 2019. So in about August, I remember saying to him, because this was before COVID, I remember saying to him, okay, like, let's plan. Like, all right, it's been a year. It was less than a year, because I mean, I had been there the first time in October. So by August, I was like, okay, let's start the K1 process, right?
Okay, so you kind of gave him the okay, basically letting him know that you wanted the marriage.
Yes. So by August-ish, and little did I know that his son was born in July. He had a second child that was born that July. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know he was in communication with his baby mama. I was the one that was still encouraging him to find where his child was, because he never admitted to me that he was in communication or had found his child, the one child I knew about, until 2020, right?
I know I remembered hearing it on your platform. He had told you that he couldn't locate his child's mother and the child at first, right? And
Exactly.
that was the one child that you did know about, but he claimed that he couldn't locate them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
While he was living with them, actually went on your first trip.
Yeah, he was living with them, and she was pregnant.
With the second child.
With the second child. Like, again, it would have been early, like, because if she would have conceived in September, so I don't know if she even knew she was pregnant on my first trip, but at some point he knew, because I found pictures in 2025. I found pictures of her coming to that new place that he moved to in Napoli, and you could see her stomach. So the pregnancy, it was clear that he was aware that she was pregnant, right? Like, I've had to piece together the story after the fact.
Yeah.
So this is what I knew at the time. I knew nothing about them. All I knew is that he told me he didn't know where they were, that they had a fight, and that they were just not in communication. And I remember saying to him, like, you really, like, you should know where your children are. Like, you should know where your child is. You should know your son. Like, how do you have a kid and not, like, I couldn't wrap my mind around it, but I understood his circumstances, right? I knew that when he got to Italy, he was in Bari, the eastern side of Italy and she was in Torino, like the northern part of Italy. So I knew that they were apart. So to me, it made sense. And so I gave him that grace in his story and understanding his story. I just assumed, okay, like this is complicated. I believed him. I just trusted him.
With that being said, what I'm going to do is divide this up into a part 2. Oops. Hold tight because this is going to get good. I'm going to ask about the wedding and then the process of getting him over and so much more. So just stay tuned. We're coming back. Look out for part 2.